And welcome to The Bottom Line, where we break down the most pressing business and economic stories with the top experts in the industry. Absolutely no interest cuts before 2026. These are the words of Polish Central Bank Governor Adam Glapiński, which started a big debate among economists. The debate has also been stoked by political considerations. I'm delighted to welcome back Professor Witold Orłowski, Chief Economic Advisor for PwC Poland. He's going to help us piece together all the recent Polish macroeconomic data that has emerged for the country, with a focus on the controversies surrounding the Polish National Bank's take on interest rates. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us again.
Hello.
So I wanted to begin with my first question, which is the Polish National Bank's decision to keep the interest rates at the same level. Was this a mistake? Because we hear that there are going to be no changes until 2025. Some economists say that the Polish Monetary Policy Council should cut interest rates sooner than 2026. What is your take and why?
No, I wouldn't say it's a big mistake. I mean, it's understandable. One obviously could think about cutting the rates, but given many unknowns, I'm not surprised that the central bank is not going to do it now. I mean, the main point actually has been already raised by one of the experts you already quoted, telling that we will have the increase of the inflation now starting from July because of the partial unfreezing of the energy prices. And taking it into consideration, we do not know what is the actual level of inflation. We've got this repressed inflation now, meaning an important price is frozen for households, the price of the energy. There is a decision of the government to unfreeze it only partly this year. So altogether, it may lead us to some increase of the inflation to, well, probably 3.5 to 4%. We are not sure. It may be more. So given this uncertainty, it's not a surprise that the central bank did not want to cut the rates. Another story is a question. I mean, should they consider cutting them in the near future? For example, if after the unfreezing to the energy prices, it appears that the inflation is still on the level of, let's say, below 4%. If this is the story, then there are good reasons to think about cutting the interest rates, at least for the time being, because obviously the rates may be increased once again once there's the additional increase of the energy prices, probably the next year. But the main problem with the interest rates is the following: that the Polish interest rates are significantly higher now than the inflation, and significantly higher than in many kind of parallel markets that are important for the buyers of the bonds. And the problem is that as a result, we've got in Poland a very strong zloty now.
I just wanted to follow up on the things that you've been saying. The high interest rates in Poland, together with the cuts in neighbouring countries, are you concerned perhaps that this might be a magnet for speculative capital?
Well, I wouldn't call it a speculative capital. I would say it's a normality on the market that if a country is applying seriously higher interest rate than the others, and at the same time there is no kind of inflationary explanation of that, then the capital is floating and the exchange rate is appreciating. Well, let me draw your attention to the fact that the zloty-euro exchange rate, that's the most important for Poland, not zloty-dollar, zloty-euro. It is basically on the same level that it was before the pandemics. And in the same time, there was something like almost 20 percentage points of inflation differentials between Poland and Germany, our main trading partner. So exports became definitely much less competitive in the case of Poland. For the time being, we do not see dramatic fall of exports, but definitely the exports have got problems with accelerating. Well, it seems to be lower than a year ago. So maybe we are already paying the price for the very strong zloty. And secondly, I must also add that on the top of the problem of the strong zloty, we've got also weak Germany, right? So a kind of a devil's combination of the weak demand at the main import market for Polish products and a strong zloty that's making the exports less competitive and less profitable. And that could start to be a problem. I would say the central bank should start thinking about the scenarios. I fully understand the point. We do not know what is going to happen with the inflation after July. We want to sit and observe. That's totally understandable. But then the next point would be, but once we see the inflation stabilizing in the autumn, let's say, well below the nominal interest rates of the central bank, then it could be considered a moment for cutting the rates. Another story is obviously some politics behind that. As you probably noticed, the relations between the government and the central bank are not very
well, this is what I wanted to ask about, actually, because I'm sure you would be able to give us some insight. There is a lot of controversy around the interest rates. A lot of economists are giving us their insight. But how much of this is actually political intrigue alongside macroeconomic data?
I would love to say no. There is only the kind of professional approach, but. Well, as almost everybody, I guess, I've got this unpleasant feeling that there's a lot of the politics behind that in the decisions of the central bank. It seems that the mood of the central bank dramatically changed after the elections that brought the new government that is not beloved by the majority of the Monetary Policy Council and the management of the central bank. It shouldn't be the case. I mean, it's against the rules, against the good behavior of the central bank. But one can see these elements. Well, no, we will see, because in a sense the test will be in the autumn time. As I told you, until now, the central bank has got good explanation why they behave this way as they behave.
We just have to wrap up. We have to wrap up, but there's one key question that I wanted to ask you. Polish defense expenditure almost equals Polish deficit. How long can we sustain this? We had Ignacy Morawski from Puls Biznesu on our show, and he was confident that Poland can sustain this for a couple of years. I wanted to hear your opinion on this.
Well, I do not think that it is okay. I mean, first, if you ask me as a macroeconomist, do I like the high deficit? My answer is obviously not. But obviously the level of the indebtedness of Poland is so low still, some 50% by the end of GDP by the end of the last year, that obviously Poland can sustain a relatively high deficit for a prolonged period of time. We had something like 5%, almost 5% of the deficit of the public sector last year. This year, I guess we'll have a bit more, and obviously it's not causing any drama. However, as every economist, I would say one shouldn't keep this type of the deficit for too long a time, not because of the risk of a crisis, but because of the, first of all, of the negative effect on the long-term growth. So obviously there is no risk for the Polish debt at that moment. Obviously there is no risk with running even relatively high deficit if necessary this year. But I'm absolutely sure that Poland should start reducing the deficit over the years to come if we do not want our rating to be cut, our exchange rate to be seriously weakened, the inflation threat coming back, and well, that's enough. Enough of the words.
Of course. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It's great to have you as a regular guest on our show. That was Witold Orłowski, Chief Economic Advisor for PwC Poland. Thanks very much for joining us again.
Bye.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Business Arena. Make sure you join us again tomorrow at 5 p.m. on TVP World. But for now, stay with us for World Talks with Małgorzata Bonikowska, the president of the Center for International Relations, who will comment on the assassination attempt on Donald Trump that rocked the U.S. during the weekend. And remember to tune in for an exclusive interview with Polish Finance Minister Andrzej Domański, 10 minutes past 8 p.m., who will talk about the Polish economy. Goodbye.